Hi everyone. Are you guys still okay? Or hungry, want to go back? Or just trying to be fast, okay? My name is Nina from University of Malaya. I'm the master's student there. And today I would like to share with you our studies of influence of habitat complexity and proximity to adjacent habitat on the fish community in tropical forereef seagrass meadow. Yeah, I know it's kind of long. So in short, I want to ask that is the structurally simple seagrass is important? Are they still providing services, ecosystem services, as we expect them? So let's start with introduction to you, Malaysian seagrass. I believe you all know where you are now in Singapore, which is neighbor to the Malaysia. And in here, Malaysia, we have a very long coastline all over Peninsular Malaysia, Sarawak, and the Sabah, and a total of 4,675 kilometers of coastline. I believe this coastline is the main habitat for the coral reef and seagrass and also mangrove. For the seagrass species in Peninsular Malaysia, we have 13 species in total, and Sabah we have 12, and 2 found in Sarawak, in total of 14 species out of the 60 species in the world. And the distribution of the seagrass major in this area, as one of my colleagues is doing the dugong area here. This is the subtidal seagrass, the most extensive in Peninsular Malaysia, and as well for Sabah. Yep, we all know that the seagrass is morphologically different in size, shapes, and heights. Even though they are same species, sometimes they can be different size as well. From here, we have the small species where they normally with the attributes like low canopy height, thin leaf. As you move on, you have the higher, bigger species here, Ann, and they have a higher canopy height and the long leaf and slow turnover. And all these species are commonly found in Malaysia seagrass meadow. However, this Ann couldn't find in our subtidal seagrass. This is because their reproduction strategies that need to restrict it in the tidal area. Where you can see here is the pollens and the female flowers. They need the surface area to able to for the pollinations. Next, yep, this is the typical underwater topography of the Johor Islands area. This is the intertidal you can find here. And after the fringing reef, we have our subtidal forereef seagrass. They are normally at deeper side, and they are adjacent to the coral reef and clearly defined by this transitional zone, which is very bare sand, and then straight away you have the forereef seagrass here. And this part is particularly interesting as well, and it's because we don't know what caused this transitional zone, which is very clearly defined. For me, I was particularly interested to know about the fish density and species richness in this forereef seagrass. And some of the study have been done by people here, and they found that the canopy height actually attributed to the fish density and also influence on the fish species richness, and as well as the coverage of the seagrass, or even the species richness of the seagrass, or proximity to the adjacent habitat, or the water depth. Maybe you can hear me clearly. Okay. Besides that, we also some other study also found that shoot density also influence on the macro invertebrate. These macro invertebrate actually also important food for the fish in the seagrass, and biomass of the seagrass also have influence on the fish mean size. But I'm particularly looking at this area here. So in order to document the fish community structure, we use some study to understand the fish density, species richness, and also trophic groups. And secondly, we want to know the habitat complexity are the influence on the fish community in the forereef seagrass. This is the study site. Back to the Johor area here, you are Singapore here. And two islands I particularly looking into is our study site. Maybe you can't see clearly here, but this is the fringing reef, the light brownish area, and the deeper side, the deeper gray, is the forereef seagrass. As Pulau Tinggi also, we have fringing reefs here, and they have even more extensive forereef seagrass here. So, I'm using this unbaited remote underwater video stations to study the fish community, because we want to get the most natural populations of the fish here within this 2 meter times 2 meter quadrats in the forereef seagrass. And also this gives minimum destructions to the area as compared to using the bream trawl or nettings, and because this area also is inside a marine protected area. And most importantly is low cost and quite easy to put up the video. However, this video will take about 80 minutes of the video around the around the quadrat here. And after we retrieve, we do subsampling from the video, and also we do the mean count for the fish density and the species richness. After the video have been taken and we return back to the quadrat, within the 2 meter times 2 meter quadrat, we assess the habitat complexity with species richness, percent cover, canopy height, and also the shoot density by using the coring and sort it out by species. And here is the data and the result from the complexity attributes. As you can see here, we have relatively low canopy, low coverage, and major dominant by the Halophila ovalis and the Uninervis here. As we can see that also the water depth is quite shallow. We can say that it's relative shallow depth area. And from all this, we can actually saying that this is a structurally simple meadow as compared some of your study sites which you have seagrass as high as this. And for the fish community, from the video is, you can see something like this. The fish passing by, then we start to do counting, and this is the area which is with the Syringodium. From the data, from the video data, we found that the most abundant fish, the 10 most abundant in here, and the most abundant is the emperor and the breams. And they are mostly benthic invertebrates, means that they are feeding on the seagrass sandy area for the macro invert. And the honorable mention is the seaganid here. They are only the herbivore fish that we found in the seagrass area, which is quite surprised also. And the commercial, the main thing I want to point it out to you is this is a commercially important species, or we can found here. Means that this seagrass provide a very economically important in fishery value, because after this you found them in the fish market. Yes. And secondly, we also assess the maturity stage. So we found that the juvenile are actually 3-fold higher than the adult in the seagrass. This means that the seagrass actually very, very important, or some study have suggested is a nursery ground for most of the fish, even the coral reef fishes. And another one point is beside one of the advantage of using the video is you can actually study their behavior. So in here we study whether they are grazing or they are in a protecting mood. And we found that they are in more grazing than the protecting mood. And this has suggested this seagrass as a foraging ground and the shelter for the fishes in here. Okay, so we ran a model, generalized linear models, to understand that which habitat complexity has attributed most to the fish density and the fish species richness. We found that the seagrass coverage actually the one who influenced most. And the distance, DIS is the stand for the distance, means the proximity to the adjacent habitat. In our case, is the coral reefs. Okay. And we tried to using CCA, and we couldn't get any significant patterns for the feeding yields. However, there's the species mostly found in the shallow, mostly found in the Halophila ovalis area, a shorter, structurally simple area belongs to the gobies. Okay, in conclusions, our finding actually means that the species, the fish habitat actually, the spatial patterns and the variability of the seagrass fish in this habitat attributed by the seagrass percent cover, and also the proximity to the adjacent habitat. In short, and this information is particularly important and for the spatial coastal management for the fisheries and also marine protected area in our country, which this information can be passed up to the Department of Fisheries or the Department of Marine Parks. Last, I ask you again, is structurally simple seagrass important? Yes, my answer is they are simply the best. And I would like to thank my supervisor and the team from the University of Malaya. This is our research stations. And lastly with this, and I believe that all of you here, without running the statistical test, I'm confident that you all are significantly associated with the status of the seagrass in the future. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions, except Gary.
Great talk, Nina. So, any questions? Not Gary.
I take your question during cocktail station.
Seriously, anyone? Teresa?
So just one thing, because you were saying that there is a clear halo around the reef. So this halo often has been attributed to the herbivores.
Yes.
I don't know if you have ever tried to put some shoots, in this case, actually planting them and seeing actually if some of the fish typically associated to the reef actually can form that.
I did. I just presented a poster in APCRS, it's a coral reef symposium last week in Cebu. This is what I did I do exclusion cages around the edge of the seagrass for 3 months, and then we found that the seagrass is actually growing back, but the seagrass around it is not. It was grazed by something else. And we saw also sea urchins. Then at the end of the 3 months, we actually opened the cage and put out the GoPro, and we found that coral reef fish actually came and actively grazed the seagrass, which is Siganus cutatus.
Yeah, because actually that's very interesting, because you have actually no herbivores living on the seagrass meadows when you are putting the GoPros, but actually this fish, herbivores from the coral reef, are actually the ones which have the strongest effect.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
So just to follow that up, Lynn, do you think that maybe at night then the herbivores might be coming out from the reef?
Yeah, we thought about that. We tried to do night dive. We thought the herbivore, because some of the publications actually mentioned the sea urchins is the one come out from the reef at night and grazing around the seagrass area. So we tried to night dive, but we didn't see any. So yeah, but we put down the GoPro, then we found out that fish is the one actively graze, have the higher impacts. But I believe sea urchins do so, but in a slower motion, you know. We need longer time to detect them, yeah.
Cool. Thank you.